From interviews to jail calls, Ditto Transcripts delivers fast, confidential, and court-ready transcription for law enforcement agencies. Ditto is CJIS compliant and is already working with agencies all over the U.S., including the Washington State Patrol and the National Park Service Investigations Unit. Get started now at dittotranscripts.com. That's dittotranscripts.com. To hear details about all the applications of Ditto Transcripts and exactly why this is a key solution for your organization's workload issues, check out episode 232. When you don't know how a recruit's really doing until week 10, that's a problem. TrackWired's field training management software replaces old school paperwork with a clean, automated system. Streamlined reporting, knowledge comprehension, and crystal clear performance trends, all handled in one secure place. TrackWire gives you real-time insight into their field training process so supervisors get real-time visibility. FTOs save hours and recruits stay on track. If you want to tighten up your FTO program, start by going to trackwire.com. That's TRACwire.com. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests of this show do not represent their employing agency, department, or organization. All information should be regarded as anecdotal, contextual, and educational, and should not be misinterpreted as legal or medical advice. Welcome to Blue Grit Radio, the podcast that explores making better cops for a better community. I'm your host, Eric Tung. I've been an active police officer since 2007. We will dive into the aspects of police culture, health and wellness, leadership, and mindset. You'll hear from experts not only from policing, but all industries as they relate to being our best with purpose, passion, and positivity. Join me as we share stories, lessons, and advice so we can all be better for ourselves, our teams, our families, and our communities. All right, everyone, welcome back. Today I have a special episode. Sometimes I say like a special episode, but this is a really special episode. I got my long-term friend and colleague, Daniel Yagi. Yagi, good to have you on the show, man, finally.
Hey, thanks, Eric. Happy to be here, and it'll be a good conversation.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool to show a little bit about you to the audience, which is like kind of nudging you and probing you to like come on and share some of your experience for the listenership, talk about what you're doing, and we'll get to all that. But so much of Dan's like prerogative in this thing is like, well, like I want to plan it out and I want to make sure it's really, really good. And that's kind of like, that speaks to like your drive, that speaks to your, focus on quality. I mean, you've been and you are one of the hardest working people in the game that I know of. Sometimes people give me that type of compliment, but I'm like, you only see that because you see that. Like a lot of what I do is front facing now, ever since recruiting and community engagement stuff. And then now doing like social media and podcasting. Of course, it's all like very obviously front facing, but for you, it's like so much more like the humble work that so many people do. But I mean, you've always been like one of the hardest working people I know. Like hands down, no fluff, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks. Part of the work ethic came from parents, just instilling, and we don't want to talk about. I mean, had a traumatic leg experience, so the hard work to recover from that, I think, bled over into police work, just and the lifestyle.
So, and we don't have to get into it, but just for the listeners, like we've talked about it before, but your leg was significantly injured when you were young, yeah, and you kind of attribute that to like having the grind and not knowing if like the functionality of your leg from doctors early on. Was that like a self decision? You're like, no, I'm gonna do whatever I can and I'm gonna overcome this thing.
I think so. I don't know. When you're young and it was like 12 surgeries, learning how to re-walk, it's just something you got to do if you want to play, have fun as a kid. There's a lot of PT, and I think that just carried over down the road.
Yeah. It seems like it didn't slow you down, right? Like you played sports growing up, you're a catcher, if I remember right. And then you fast forward to patrol years when we were in our more of like our youth. But man, like fitness was a huge priority for me and you. Foot chases, like all that kind of stuff, like always being like really dialed in. So I know that you took that seriously. So I think that is really helpful for some people to listen to, which is like, yeah, you can have the deck appear to like stack against you, but what you do with it's up to you. I mean, we can't overcome everything sometimes. But that's an example where like you're able to hang with the best of them, physically, as far as like physically fit cops. And doing tactical training and all that stuff.
Yeah, the biggest, I guess, it just looks weird now. My kids call it a squid leg.
Those kids can be so mean.
They mean well, but it's funny.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I want to kind of like talk about patrol days. Some of my fondest memories, I think of, you think about your golden years, but for me, it was like working patrol. And there was that stint where, we were on the same crew, you were on the squad, like me and Kato and like Super Green dog team, just trying to figure things out. But you would be, and when I talk about the team effort of Canine or just any team, but specifically Canine, like a lot of times it's a really hard learning curve. These dogs, we breed them away from, thousands of years of like from like wolves kind of descendants, right? And don't attack my science here. I'm saying like they're domesticated over time, right? And then dogs don't typically like just want to bite people. But they have to be trained to be protective, so you get some of those inclinations, and then things go great in training. You select for the dogs and all this, but then when it goes from like sleeve work or hidden sleeve, like you have a passive subject, and like the dog doesn't want to engage, and so we had a lot of that. It's a very common thing for a lot of canine handlers. So if you're a newer team out there, stay patient, but engage the team, and that's kind of my point. Where man, you guys, yourself probably being one of the like front of the line, we're always like doing not like a couple things. One is like training with me, right? Training tracks and bite work, little scenarios in the middle of the night, but also you'd be like drumming up work, right? You'd be making stops, you'd be, looking up people with felony warrants that we could go sit on and kind of do knock and talks and see if they ran out the back. I'd be like hiding in the bushes. But that's like
I still
taking
have the
ownership,
scar
right?
here
What's
for
that from?
that for the dude where he ran out the back and Kato got him, and then their German Shepherd, they opened the door
Oh,
and he bit me.
it's like a double,
Two
yeah,
dog
a
legs.
reverse canine, like
Yeah,
a suspect canine.
we're like
Yeah,
it worked
man, I
and it
barely
didn't
remember
work.
that. I barely
Yeah,
remember that.
98th.
Yeah, Dan just held up his elbow and I could see the scar. Yeah, man, and then like just drumming up a lot of work on. Shoot, what was that? Was that your stop on Pack Highway where you were running on the track with me? And it was like we went to like some tire shop and the guy was like hiding under there after going over this wall.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was pretty nuts.
I don't know if it was a traffic stop or yeah,
I can't
I
remember.
remember that though.
I can't remember, but I mean that's that teamwork. So it's not just like the hard charging guy that you were, but also like affecting this team. The whole crew wanted like a dog that knew what he was doing, and a handler dog team that was like proficient, and so helping me along. Like I'm super grateful for that. But part of why I was really excited to bring you on was to talk about just that, right? That initiation, that like thirst, that hunger for proactive police work, because I've heard many people in the region or just through socials that say, hey, I came on, COVID, kind of like COVID cops, as we call them, not a proactive environment. And so they kind of just went to what they're dispatched to. They weren't nudged. They're kind of asked to just do that. And then I've heard several officers that actually have a good amount of time on where they just say they don't know how to be proactive. What are your thoughts when you hear something like that?
That's a good question. One would be maybe sit down and talk to dudes and gals that have been on for a while prior to go COVID and ask, hey, what are some things that you did to drum up work other than just being dispatched? I think there's one. He's a school resource officer now with our department. I won't say his name, but he was very good at just. He loved the community, talked to people, students, just people, social contacts. Not even looking just to jam them up, but to be like, hey, what's going on
Mm-hmm.
in the community? Who's doing? Who are the people that are selling dope? Who are the people doing burgs, stealing cars, and just kind of logging in, like, hey, have a good day, and just asking, hey, where should I sit? Where's the chop shop in our region? He never really jammed up those people, but they respected him. But he would know when a bulletin came out, hey, who is this? And he's like, oh, well, I just heard about this person. That's kind of a good way to start engaging the community and figuring out where to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how you bring up that point because people hear proactive that most of us all think like one thing. But at the time this episode comes out, I'll probably have this like Ask Tongue feature in Police One where it is talking about proactivity. And what does that even mean? And there's so many versions of it, right? There's the typical, like, yeah, I'm going to be pulling traffic stops and hope that I get a pursuit where the, felony suspect bails. Like, that's proactive. Or it's like I'm driving around and I see like a hand to hand, and then I can, get this low level guy and maybe flip them, street source kind of stuff. But you're talking about just like what a lot of people label community policing, just talking to people, being present, being engaged, and then it doesn't yield in, running someone's name. Maybe it does, and maybe it's not taking them on their chippy warrant. Maybe it's saying, hey, like, thanks for playing ball, thanks for being solid. I'm gonna try to do you a solid. Like, I don't need to hem you up. You got your stuff, you got your family. Take care of that warrant. Also, that you're building this relationship, right? So it's like this
For
give and
sure.
take. Where, yeah, in the example that you brought up with that officer, like, he was a easy shoe-in for school resource officer, because already before he was in that role, all the kids, all the teens would just talk to him. Like, they felt and they knew he cared. And so that became the natural, like, of a fantastic place, which I think thematically for anyone looking to develop their career in a certain place, it's kind of like act as if you have the role. How would you do it? How would you go about it and prove yourself, rather than sometimes you see this with specialties or with promotion, where it's like, oh yeah, once I get that, then I'll do this. You're like, yeah, that's just talk. Like, just be about it now in the way that makes sense. What are some of the things that you remember? I have some that I remember, but like when you're on patrol and drumming up work, right? So you kind of talked about how you recommend finding somebody to ask and pick their brain, which is like, that's great. Mentorship is huge. Sometimes you got to seek mentors because people are just doing their thing. And a lot of people are so inclined to stop and be like, oh, hey, didn't notice you there. Yeah, let's sit down, let's talk. Like, I would be happy to help you out. So sometimes you have to be your own advocate. But what are some of the things that come to mind when you are being asked, like, yeah, where do I start? How do I start doing this whole like proactive quote unquote thing?
I would say, well, there's always a handful of people that I'll choose to mentor and try to push into the direction that they want to go. So right now, there's a bunch of people that want to try to get into our current unit. So just trying to teach, here's what you can be doing. Here's the end goal. Here's high level cases that you can have a positive impact on by doing X, Y, and Z, and then trying to show them and mentor them while you're in this unit or in patrol right now. There's things that you can be doing proactively on cases on follow up. Just like you were saying, proactive doesn't mean you're just pulling over every car, jamming every person up that's on the corner. You can proactively take a 911 call. For example, assault. There's a guy who did a good job. Got his leg bashed in with a lime studer. Had his leg broken, but that officer is proactively following up, doing the statements, the follow-up statements, getting the doctor records, figuring out the phone number, identifying the suspect proactively after the call. Going up, we taught him how to write the ping warrant. Came out, did surveillance, figured out where he worked, where he lived, and he'll be hitting that house with his own search warrant and the SWAT team in a couple weeks. So, I mean, this will air after. But that's another way to proactively, on our side, mentor others. And then on the flip side, they're getting after it and learning the process while still being on the road.
Yeah, I love that example. I know about that, so I'm kind of smirking, which is, yeah, there's some people that like handle their calls, and there's some people that like own their calls, right? And it's like, hey, we know that sometimes the pace doesn't mean you can go start to finish, but some cases you can, right? Sometimes you have that discretionary time. We all have some degree of it. I mean, even in the cultures where it's just like, page of holding calls on CAD, there may be some level of expectation of what you can work, on your own, especially if you want to gear up your career a certain way, or maybe you get overtime approved to work on this case. It's not, a really violent like offender that you need to get like today, but it's something that you can work. And maybe in that type of agency, a lot of times your investigations unit is just, they're up to their eyeballs in cases anyway, and so it's going to be their overtime or yours, and they'd actually prefer to do the violent, like, pressing things because they're swimming in it. So yeah, talk to your bosses, ask questions, ask what you can do, and then also self-initiate, which in that example, yeah, that officer just clearly like took the initiative to just keep going, and was, probably fair to say, very passionate and like invested in this. Guy gets his lower leg just like smashed in half by this scooter. Super gnarly, super gnarly. So good on him in that example. Again, a different flavor of proactive. But what I'll share with the listeners and kind of take us down memory lane is I remember like you were like a keenly aware of like all the quote unquote hotspots, right? Like the houses that were flops, or they're kind of like these fencing properties, that take all the stolen stuff, and so there's always cars in and out, and people abusing drugs, people with warrants like in and out, stolen cars in and out, and so you'd camp out. But I don't think this is extremely common where regardless of rain or shine, the seasonality of it, you'd be like camped out, and sometimes you'd like type me that, hey, I'm going to be out here. Sometimes I'd see it, sometimes I wouldn't, but I'd like try to go out, and I'd get out and I'd try to park away and like be hiking in, walking in. I'm like, where the heck are you? And like maybe it's a text or maybe it's trying to get you on admin channel, but you're not trying to chirp up because you don't want to be audible. You're literally in the bushes, literally in this hedge, like across the street where you can see everything, because anyone can see a cop car from, literally, easily like a half mile away. If you're not parked in a really discreet place. So you'd like park way around the corner and hike in or walk down this trail. But you'd be able to like kind of whisper and call out different plates. And I was just like, man, that is just another level of that tenacity that for someone that wanted to go to a plainclothes, like, demonstrate you're self-driven, that you can make stops, build cases, flip people, and then also find these really awesome, like high level, high value, like felony warrants, like violent offenders and stuff like that, like, and build this case towards this property. But that's like, I'm hoping so many people hear that. If you're a street cop, you're like, oh, that is next level. I need to find ways to adopt some of that mentality in a way that works for me and my community. Or you're like the seasoned officer, FTO, or sergeant, and you're like, that's the kind of nudging that I need for my person, because they say they want to do this, and I hadn't really thought about, hey, like, are you willing to do this? Because you could really affect that problem house or problem unit, with some different kind of strategies and tactics.
Yeah, I laugh too because people sometimes would poke fun. I think it caught on a little bit because you're right. With human nature, people are looking out for the squad car. They're not looking for a dude in a bush. And you can see so much when just visually watching with scopes, human reactions, cars pulling in and out during normal business hours. What does traffic look like on this street? Then as it gets into the middle of the night, what does it look like? Is there changes in patterns? And those are the things that if you're trying to be a proactive officer, you should be looking for. And then just start watching. I've always loved people watching, and watching people's reactions and to things and figuring out, oh, I wonder how long they've been dating, or that's just been my mindset. But with police work and carrying over in surveillance, it's kind of the same thing. You're sitting, watching, and just seeing what happens.
Yeah, I love that. It's like just to be curious, right? Like, I wonder why that is, and I wonder what this body language might be doing or inferring. Like, I feel like as a new baby cop, you learn all this lingo to put in your case reports. You're like, oh, furtive movement. Or you're like, okay, what is that? And like, what is it actually? What are they actually doing? And why do you suspect something might be hidden, or they're like blading away? And like, what does that infer? Right? What is that making you concerned about? Whether they're hiding a gun or hiding dope or what have you. So, no, I think that's a great kind of nudge on what people should be and could be thinking about. But also, like, you're talking about when someone has this career goal or this interest, like thinking objectively about, okay, what are the things that unit does, seeking that mentorship, and what are the skills you could be building. So there's like the tangible like skills, like writing warrants, right, and trying to get up on a ping on someone's phone. But at the same time, there's also like maybe a different word than skill would be like the traits, like, okay, this how do you talk to people, right? How do you get inquisitive and curious? Do you have any thoughts on kind of that category of things? Because for some, I'm like, you just need more reps. Like, you need to do traffic stops, you need to go out on social contacts, and just like reps. If someone walks away and you didn't have enough to detain them, okay, like, chew on it. Maybe driving around later that night, you're like, oh, okay, now I can articulate it better based on everything with that area and now what I know about that person or that car, right? And so what comes to mind with you with kind of developing those types of skills for officers?
First, I would say maybe personality traits. A lot of these higher or these units, whatever, homicide, major crimes, SIU type units, task forces, you're gonna get picked oftentimes because it's a team environment, and so they want team players. So if you have if they think, oh, he's just going to be a solo cowboy and not get along with the team, it may be harder. So setting yourself up for success in how you work on patrol with the personality traits of being humble, being able to contribute to the team and put other people's cases first. That's going to go a long way where, like, okay, he's not only going to work on his or her cases, he's going to help our cases, and then also being a hard worker. So setting yourself up for those personality and character traits is going to help. And then on the flip side, the tangible stuff, being a strong interviewer and having the gift of gab. So if you're going to be going to a dope unit, being able to flip people. If you're going to homicide or whatever, still you need the gift of gab to be able to interview and make victims and witnesses feel comfortable. Because if you can't talk and get a statement, that's going to be hard for your case. So learning that, interviews and interrogations, and just how to talk to people and make people feel, oh, I can talk to this officer. And then when you move over to detectives or a task force, I can talk to this person and trust them. That's huge. Then being able to articulate all of that and put it into search warrants. Search warrants is a big part of building out cases. So start reading homicide cases, shootings, robbery series, kidnappings, rapes cases. Not only read the actual case reports, but ask them to send you those search warrants, because search warrants oftentimes look different and there's more content in the report, but things are worded different in a search warrant. And then go one step further and ask to read the PC search, the actual filing documents, because that's articulated and authored in a different manner. So if you start from a very young age in patrol, kind of from when you get the call and you've already have the knowledge on, hey, here's stuff going to trial and getting filed, and the different ways to write the warrants and the reports from the detective side, it's going to probably fast track you down the road.
Yeah. No, that's legit. You hit on a few different points, which I think is really helpful to hone in on. And one is that, like building that gift of the gab. And there's a couple tips that I heard a long time ago, which is, I think, helpful for anyone. But it's not to ignore the opportunities to get reps. And we all go to these calls, right? It's like the shoplifter in custody. You read rights, and sometimes I remember reading these as a patrol sergeant where I read Miranda, and then they like booked them, and I'm like, what did they say? Like, did they invoke or did they not? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, I was like, did you question them? Did you ask them anything? Say anything? And it's kind of like, well, I had the surveillance, I had the LP, and I just read them. They said they would talk to me, and I was like, and you didn't ask them anything? And it's like just like such this low hanging fruit, huge missed opportunity. Not because you like need it for PC, but like, why not talk to him and see what he'll tell you? Like, see why'd you steal that thing? And like, there's so many different tactics based on their body language, but a lot of people, they're caught and they'll talk. But then what else can you find out, right? Are they stealing it for fencing, right? Do they have a habit that they're trying to support? That's a lot of the times, right? They're not just driving around selling this stuff on their own through Facebook Marketplace, but like, what do you want to do? What's the opportunity? You want to like affect this in a bigger way? And similarly, right? Like, if you're in a busier department, you might be the first person like reading rights to the homicide suspect, right? The shooting suspect in custody. Like, you read the rights, and then if they don't invoke, you're really not going to talk to them. But you don't want to be like all like uptight and nervous, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to talk to this homicide suspect. It's like, well, one, if you actually just engage in every opportunity to interview people, like whether it's a DV or a theft, like it's kind of the same. You're just talking to them. Like, what are you really going to mess up? Like, what comes to your mind when I remember being that officer, and I remember hearing some tips, that are passed on to me. But like, what do you say to that person that's like, oh my gosh, I just read the rights to this crazy offender, and then they said that they are willing to talk to me? Any thoughts or tips that you'd tell that officer that might be a little nervous?
I'll insert in two prongs. The first one, going back to the shoplifter, a lot of people, when they're saying, how do you find hot spots, it would be oftentimes on those Fred Meyer shoplifts, Target shoplifts. They're stealing a lot of times for reasons, and sadly sometimes they're it's because they can't afford stuff, doesn't make it right. Often other times it's to support narcotic habits. There's different reasons, but during those, when you're sitting in the LP's office, yeah, I would get the PC, the knowledge of, yeah, you were stealing, blah, blah, blah. Then I'd move past that as fast as I could to, okay, and treat him with respect, but hey, why are you shoplifting? What is this? And then start going down the roads, showing compassion and I'm sorry, this is to support your fentanyl or heroin addiction or whatever it may be. Who is selling? Where are these hot houses? What car did you show up in? Do you know where other stolen cars are? And just asking those questions, just storing it. And sometimes those people would be pitched over to work for detectives. Other times they would just be street sources. Oftentimes they wouldn't be, but if you keep hearing the same name, the same house over and over and over, then that's where I'd be like, okay, I'm going to sit at this blog because 4 people in the past 2 weeks have mentioned that same thing. So using that as an opportunity will help you feel more comfortable in just getting the gift of gab and talking, because everybody responds to shoplifts, but a lot of people don't take that and use it as an opportunity just to start talking to people.
Yeah.
Then on the flip side, the violent crime cases, like you're saying, I would say the general rule of thumb is, right, reading somebody is triggered by, or if you can, don't read them right there on, if it's like a homicide suspect, they're on scene, try to don't ask them questions about the case and let the detectives read it. That's generally around the nation. Most detectives say, okay, yeah, let us read them over there, because they'll have a strategy on tempo and how they say it. Because sometimes patrol cops will be like, you have the right to remain silent. And then the guy's like, oh my gosh. And it's read in a weird manner. We're like, oh yeah, I'm going to be silent before detectives have the ability to take a crack at them.
Let's fast forward. Those are good points, and maybe this will help people in either scenario. But let's say, you physically detain people based on the circumstances, and there's a shooting, and you believe people are armed, and then lo and behold, one of the people in cuffs that you frisk has a firearm, and then everyone on scene starting to say, oh yeah, like he started it and he shot and all this stuff. And so they are, in all intents and purposes, in custody.
Right. I see what you're saying. Okay, at the bare minimum, right, tell the person they have the right to counsel. But you do have to, on the patrol side, when you start trying to develop, hey, do we have PC? And starting to piece together whatever the shooting is or the fight. Yeah, right. Miranda is triggered by, they're in custody, and then you start asking them questions. So yeah, think about that and know your case law and legal process. But if you do arrest said suspect, and it is, hey, we have PC for homicide, advise them you have the right to counsel, and then I would just, transport them over to detectives. But as you're trying to build whatever case, having the ability to talk to witnesses, putting them at peace and figuring out do we have PC, you're going to have to, oftentimes, there's not always video, but having the ability to interview people and making them feel comfortable enough to be like, okay, I'm going to tell this officer my side of the story or what I saw.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, you can start getting the ability to do that by taking the opportunity during those shoplifts, during whatever, you're dispatched to on your normal patrol shifts, and you're going to get better and better at it.
Yeah, and those are good points. I don't want to get too in the weeds, because as I say this like loose scenario, people are going to visualize this different thing. So like, oh, do I do I engage them or not?
Right.
But you've focused on a couple things, or you brought it a couple of times, which is like make people comfortable, right? So on the shoplift, you said, hey, I'm going to move away from like the strict PC questions and then just talk about them, like talk about what's going on. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Blue Grit Radio. As always, support this community by subscribing, giving us a 5-star review, and following, liking, and sharing posts on Blue Grit Wellness on Instagram. You can reach me there or email me at bluegritwellness@gmail.com. Be well and stay gritty.